Nestled in the hills above the Danube River in Austria lies the former site of Mauthausen concentration camp, one of the most notorious labour and extermination facilities operated by Nazi Germany. Opened in August 1938, shortly after the Anschluss of Austria, it was the first large concentration camp established outside of the Third Reich proper. Though less well known than Auschwitz or Dachau, Mauthausen was amongst the most brutal. It was categorized as a Grade 3 camp, reserved for incorrigible political enemies of the Reich, a death sentence in all but name. At the heart of Mauthausen's horror was a physical structure that became an icon of suffering, the Stairs of Death. Officially part of the camp's stone quarry, the stairs were not just a logistical route for slave labourers, they were a carefully calibrated mechanism of destruction, humiliation, and execution. The Stairs of Death were more than a passage. They were a deliberate tool of murder, and their cruelty was far worse than people often imagine. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. The Mauthausen camp complex was built next to the Wiener Graben, a granite quarry. This location was no accident at all. The SS had plans to turn the camp into a profitable venture through the exploitation of forced labour for building materials. Prisoners were forced to work in the quarry from sunrise until sunset in grueling, dangerous conditions. At the centre of this forced labour operation were 186 steep, uneven stone steps carved into the side of a quarry. Each day, prisoners were forced to carry massive granite blocks, often weighing 40 to 50 kilograms, up the stairs on their shoulders or backs. There were no safety rails. The steps were deliberately irregular in size and spacing to make walking even more dangerous. One misstep could mean instant death, either from the fall or from being trampled by others behind. Guards would stand by watching. If a prisoner stumbled, dropped his load, or collapsed from exhaustion, he would often be beaten, kicked, or even shot on the spot. Sometimes the prisoners would also be thrown off the top of the stairs into the pit of the quarry below. The top of the Stairs of Death led to another site of terror, the so-called parachutist wall. This 50-metre high cliff earned its nickname because guards would force prisoners to stand on the edge and then push them, or order them to jump to their deaths. Sometimes the guards would pretend to play a game, offering the prisoner a chance at survival if he jumped, but of course there was no parachute, only jagged rocks below. The parachute jump was a common form of execution for prisoners the guards found too weak to carry on, or simply those who they wanted to make an example of. Other times, entire groups would be marched to the edge and pushed off en masse. One surviving witness, Francisco Bloch, a Spanish political prisoner and photographer, later testified that the SS would laugh as they made sport of it. The dead below would sometimes be left for days, their bodies piled amongst the stone debris and the people working. It was not just about killing, it was about annihilating dignity and making murder a routine. The horrors of the Stairs of Death were not a product of logistical necessity, but of ideology. Mauthausen was governed by the Nazi principle of Vernichtung durch Arbeit, extermination through labour. Unlike Auschwitz, which developed into a large-scale extermination centre using gas chambers, Mauthausen combined forced labour with calculated physical destruction. The goal was to work the prisoners literally to death. Prisoners from a wide array of nationalities were sent to Mauthausen: political dissidents, Spanish Republicans, Jewish people, Roma, Jehovah's Witnesses, homosexuals, and Soviet prisoners of war. The Soviets in particular, being the enemy, were often treated with extreme brutality. One Soviet prisoner later recalled, "We had to carry the stones like donkeys. If you fell, you were dead." In the winters, snow and ice made the stairs nearly impassable. Yet prisoners were still forced to carry heavy stones in freezing conditions, often barefoot and with little clothing. Deaths from exhaustion, hypothermia, or accidents were daily occurrences. The SS guards and Carpos, prisoner functionaries, actual prisoners who were given a little bit of power, took delight in turning the stairs into a theatre of suffering. Survivors recalled that guards would deliberately overburden prisoners, sometimes stacking 2 or 3 stones onto one man's back. The point was not productivity, it was pain. Sometimes for no reason at all, a prisoner halfway up the stairs would be shot, causing a domino effect as others tumbled over him. On other occasions, the guards forced prisoners to sing patriotic or mocking songs as they climbed, even as they died. One Polish survivor remembered, "The guards would laugh as we fell. They said we were animals, less than animals." It is estimated that more than 90,000 people died inside of Mauthausen camp complex, though exact numbers vary due to the incomplete records and mass burials found all over the camp. A significant proportion of these deaths occurred within the quarries, either directly on the stairs of death or as a result of injuries and exhaustion sustained there. Unlike many Nazi death sites, the stairs remain largely intact today, however they have been rebuilt. Tourists and historians can walk them, though they are now empty, silent, and eerily clean and slightly more even. But the past clings to each step. After the war, Mauthausen became the site of major war crimes investigations. Several SS officials and guards were tried in the Mauthausen-Gusen trials, part of the Dachau trials held by the US military. The brutalities of the stairs, the cliff, and the quarry were presented as key evidence of systematic extermination. The stairs of death at Mauthausen were more than just a method of execution. They were a symbol of the calculated, ideological cruelty of the Nazi regime. Their horror lay in not just the deaths they caused, but in the way they transformed murder into routine. Every step climbed under duress, every stone carried by skeletal hands, and every fall met with laughter by the guards, all served the regime's aim of dehumanization and destruction. It is easy to imagine the Holocaust in terms of gas chambers, but places like Mauthausen remind us that death did not always come swiftly or secretively. Sometimes it came one step at a time, under the open sky, in full view of others, engineered not just to kill the body, but to break the soul. In understanding the full brutality of the stairs of death, we confront not only the scale of Nazi cruelty, but its terrifying intimacy. And we are reminded that memory must not falter, for the stones of Mauthausen still speak. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.